everybody, and welcome back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, now dubbed by Disney, or Lucasfilm, whichever way you slice it, Legends. Today I have for you, of course, because I am anal with chronology, though you don't have to do this, we have another book that is only half of it because the other half is Anakin and Obi-Wan. So of course we'll read that later. But I will mention it again when we get to it, where it's the part with Anakin and Obi-Wan, how you can just all read it together if you're so inclined. But if you're like me and you're like, I want to read this when it happens, then you would read it here. And then we also have books 14 to 16 of the Jedi Apprentice Young Adult series. And it's a good one. But non-spoiler wise for Jedi Apprentice Deceptions, the first half anyway, with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, is Obi-Wan has to deal with the father of not Xanatos, but of his bully, Brock, who is dead. That's what I'll say non-spoiler wise for that. And then books 14 to 16 of the Jedi Apprentice series deal with a planet that Qui-Gon and Tal had gone to on a mission before when they were Padawans themselves, and deals a lot with Tal and Qui-Gon. That's pretty vague. That's pretty much all I'm going to say there. Again, I was going to read more books to kind of put it all together, but I figured since this is one big storyline, it's basically one book split into three because they're young adult books, but like if it was a full book, it'd probably be in one single book. So I decided to just do those three together. But overall, absolutely fantastic. I think books 14 to 16 are probably the best of the Jedi Apprentice series just because, yeah, it's cool to see Obi-Wan in his younger years, and that's really, interesting stuff. It's interesting to see Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan's relationship form, but still, Qui-Gon was kind of the character we saw in Episode 1, with maybe a bit more compassion. I mean, he had compassion in the movie, but, everyone's very stoic in that film. Because since we got to hear inside of his head and stuff, we got to get a bit more with that. And we've been having Tal in pretty much since earlier on in this story. So the culmination of all that to what we get in this three-parter is really good. It's probably the most character development we've gotten for Qui-Gon, and it's really good. Absolutely fantastic young adult series so far, and if you're like, I don't know, man, I like the novels, I like the comics, I don't know if I want to read books meant for kids, well, you are missing out. Because while these may have been sold at Scholastic book fairs and stuff, and while kids were reading these are excellent stories worth your time. These are, maybe not individually, but as a whole, this is just as good as any other adult novel that you would read. It's absolutely fantastic, and I love it. The one interesting thing about this series is that, things have to be a lot more smaller scale because it's technically peacetime, but you still have plenty of action, plenty of enjoyment. But what you're really getting here is the characters here, and that's the funnest part. But yeah, if you don't want spoilers, if you want to read this for yourself, now would be the time to go. But if not, if you're a veteran or you just don't care about spoilers, join me. I don't have too much to say though, because I didn't read as much, but Deceptions. So Obi-Wan isn't necessarily on trial if the public sentiment is that that it is a crime, then he will go to trial. But this is kind of just talking about what happened, because in the events with Xanatos and everything, Bruck, who was a former bully to Obi-Wan, died. It wasn't Obi-Wan's fault, but he did die. And so his father comes super pissed off and angry, about his son being dead, blaming Obi-Wan, and so that's a whole thing that Obi-Wan's having to deal with in the first half of Deceptions. Of course, the second half of Deceptions, I'm sure the repercussions will show up because it deals with Qui-Gon, or it deals with Obi-Wan and Anakin in the second half, which we won't get to for a while. But yeah, and then also, at this point, Tal has still not accepted Bant, the Mon Calamari, as the Padawan as a Padawan for herself, but she will be by the next book. But she's still struggling with coming to that conclusion in this book. But overall, it was really enjoyable. By the end of it, of course, I think Brooks' brother's like, bro, I'm going to get revenge someday on you. And that's kind of where it ends, and I imagine they'll be picked back up in the second half of the book. But it's really interesting to see Brooks' family and how upset they are. And I mean, it's not too much politics. Like, there's more books that are more political with that stuff. But we do get little bits of the Senate in here and there. You know, I love the Senate of the prequels. I love hearing about that stuff. So we got a little bit more of that in here. So overall, really good. We get to books 14 to 16. Book 14 is The Ties That Bind. And it starts with Qui-Gon being worried about Tall. He's getting visions of her like dying in his arms. Kind of like Anakin later on would have with his wife and with his mother. See, this is why had Qui-Gon not died, I really think Anakin would not have been swayed by Palpatine to turn to the dark side, because Qui-Gon gets it. He's the only Jedi of this time frame that could really get it, right? Because it reminds me of the KOTOR game with Jolee Bindo, the one who was not afraid to love. He's more like that. And so it's interesting because as we find out, of course, in the series, and Qui-Gon finds out for himself, he is in love with Tall, which is why he gets so worried for her. In fact, that's what he does by the end of this book. He confesses his love for Tall in the Qui-Gon most way possible. I even sent my friend like a little section of that, and I said like, so in like normal people terms, in less eloquent fashion, I love you is basically what he said. But yeah, it's had Qui-Gon not died, he could have completely empathized and related to Anakin. He could have helped Anakin from turning to the dark side. Obi-Wan was a bit of a mix mash, right? Because Qui-Gon was his master. So he was more, open, more friendly. He probably had a deeper connection with Anakin than probably any of the other Jedi masters and their Padawans. I'm just going to say that. Probably. Because Obi-Wan did allow himself to love. Maybe not romantically, but he admits by episode 3. He says, I loved you like a brother. I did love you. So, but that's another issue because Obi-Wan refused to, he just never saw himself as a father figure, which is kind of what Anakin needed. And Qui-Gon could have been that. And I don't think Palpatine would have been able to have as much influence as he did because he preyed upon the fact that he needed a father figure. But anyway, so yeah, that's basically book 14. They also end up going to this planet New Epsilon, which was a former place that Qui-Gon and Tall had gone to. There's political stuff going on the planet and a big conspiracy going on. They gotta stop it. But then book 15, Death of Hope. As they continue to go on this adventure, nothing really of note I think is worth discussing that much. It's still going on with the adventure. The most notable part of this book is the end. Because Tall has been kidnapped. And Qui-Gon needs to find her. Qui-Gon needs to save her because they just confessed their love to each other. They're going to be, in love. They're going to, be in a relationship together now. Finally. They've admitted to themselves. But the issue is that by the very end of it, Tall dies. That whole ending to the book is really, really impactful. To see Qui-Gon be that upset. Obi-Wan may not be as close to Tall, but he cares for Tall, and that's hard on him too. Hardest on Qui-Gon, of course. Book 16, The Call to Vengeance. So, of course, here, Qui-Gon is going after the guy that killed his love. In fact, it was very reminiscent to the little short section of Legacy of the Jedi, which is why I'm happy I read it in the order I did, because I can make these parallels. Qui-Gon, when he was a Padawan, saved Dooku. I mean, didn't save him forever, because once Qui-Gon died, that was kind of like the last straw for Dooku, and then he turned to the dark side. But Dooku could have turned to the dark side back then by killing his former friend. But Qui-Gon convinces him not to. And that's something that Obi-Wan continuously tries to do throughout the entire book, tries to keep him on the path. But when Qui-Gon is on his own and Obi-Wan has to figure some things out, you see the decisiveness, the detective sort of aspect to Obi-Wan, that he's really intelligent. I mean, I've always known that Obi-Wan was really intelligent, but you can really see it in this book because he kind of starts putting two and two together. You finally figure out what's going on through Obi-Wan's, lens. I just enjoy that because there are parts in these stories where Qui-Gon leaves Obi-Wan and Obi-Wan has to become a bit more independent to become the, even the Jedi we'd see by episode 1, but most certainly the Jedi Master he would become in 2 and 3. And by the end of it, he finds the guy, Qui-Gon, and, Obi-Wan is constantly trying, but, Qui-Gon is just in tunnel vision. I'm going to make this man suffer. But he hears his name. He finally backs up and realizes what he's about to do. And he relents. Later on, he realizes, though, while Obi-Wan was a great help, constantly trying to stop him, the person who said his name right before he went to go kill that person or murder that person was Tal herself. And the end of it, it's kind of sad. He must live with her death forever and try to find peace in the life that he will have without her. But yeah, super short video. I wanted to make sure I had something to release because I haven't uploaded something all week. But yeah, overall fantastic. We have basically 2 more books in the Jedi Apprentice series that I will read, then a short story or 2, and then 2 comics, and I'm just going to bunch that into one video together. And then I'm going to take a short break from the Star Wars Expanded Universe, read Dune, get you a review for that, then come right back to the Star Wars Expanded Universe, starting with Jedi Council Acts of War, the comic series. Or 4-issue comic. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. Sharing helps out a ton. Don't forget to subscribe. And may the Force be with you.